Today is Friday, May 16th. We're talking about a military buildup on the U.S.-Mexico border and another air traffic control outage, this time out west. Also, we'll tell you about a major step forward in personalized medicine that could one day be used to treat millions of people. Plus, the biggest retailer yet to raise prices because of tariffs. A historic discovery made at Harvard Law School. And the WNBA is back and bigger than ever as the NBA gets closer to the finals. Those stories and even more news to know coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The U.S.-Mexico border could soon become even more crowded with military personnel. Reports say the Homeland Security Department asked for more than 20,000 National Guard members to help with the immigration crackdown. It's still not clear exactly where the forces would go, which states would contribute, and who would pay for the mission. But no matter what, it would be a big change in strategy for the U.S., which usually leaves the border to law enforcement agencies. Things are changing now since President Trump signed an order describing border threats as an invasion, and with that justifying a military response. Just last month, Trump signed another order to let the U.S. military take control of the strip of public land along the border that goes through California, New Mexico, and Arizona. The U.S. military is present on the border in other ways, too. It's dispatched spy planes, surveillance drones, helicopters, and even 2 Navy warships to watch the borders and coasts around the clock. Plus, thousands of active-duty combat troops and armored Stryker combat vehicles have already arrived. Supporters of the military buildup say it helps troops hone some skills and makes things harder for human smugglers. But critics argue it's costly and could impact long-term combat readiness since the U.S. military's mission typically is not immigration-related. Either way, Trump's tactics seem to be working to deter people from entering the U.S. without authorization. Last month, about 8,000 people were arrested for illegally crossing the border, and that's down from about 128,000 people a year earlier. President Trump's Middle East tour continued in the United Arab Emirates yesterday, and just as he did in Saudi Arabia and Qatar, the president in the UAE announced billions of dollars worth of deals. For example, a $14.5 billion commitment from Etihad Airways to invest in American-made aircraft. The U.S. and UAE also came up with the framework for a new artificial intelligence partnership. They agreed to build a massive data center complex in Abu Dhabi to advance AI capabilities. And the UAE agreed to build or finance data centers in the U.S. that will be at least as large and powerful as those in its own country. Plus, Reuters cites sources who say the UAE will get more access to advanced AI chips from the U.S. While in the UAE, President Trump spoke about Gaza, once again floating the idea of an American takeover, despite it being unpopular with Arab leaders. Trump also visited a mosque in what was his first publicly known visit to a Muslim house of worship as president. He's slated to wrap up his Mideast trip today. Lawyers for Sean Diddy Combs started cross-examining a star witness who has now spent 3 days testifying against their client. They questioned Diddy's former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. Remember, Ventura already told the jury she felt humiliated by drug-fueled sexual events Combs called freak-offs that sometimes lasted days. Well, in court yesterday, Diddy's lawyers had her read aloud her own messages she sent from when they were dating. And in some of them, she expressed having a desire for the so-called freak-offs. Though on the stand, Ventura said jurors were not hearing the full context of the conversation. Combs has pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking and racketeering charges. Prosecutors say Combs and his inner circle used threats, violence, drugs, bribery, arson, kidnapping, and lies to coerce Ventura and other women into sex acts and to keep quiet about them. On the other side, his defense admits he could be violent, but that nothing he did amounted to a criminal enterprise. Ventura's testimony is expected to continue today. We're learning about yet another air traffic control outage. This time it happened at a facility in Denver, Colorado that coordinates flights over a large swath of the West. The FAA now says it had a partial outage on Monday and lost contact with jets for about 90 seconds. As we've mentioned before, similar outages have been happening at a facility in Philadelphia, leaving controllers unable to communicate with planes headed to and from Newark Airport. But the one out of Denver is different, since it typically oversees planes during their journeys, not during takeoff and landing. So planes are already typically higher in the sky, spaced farther apart, and moving at steady speeds. The recent outage did not cause any disruptions, and just yesterday, the U.S. Transportation Secretary told lawmakers he believes the system is safe. Still, the FAA is investigating. Harvard Law School thought it had bought a cheap copy of Magna Carta decades ago, but it was just authenticated as an original from 1300 AD, and that makes it one of just 7 surviving originals in the world. And it means the document that was bought for less than $28 is actually worth many millions of dollars. It's significant since the Magna Carta is often regarded as the earliest declaration of human rights. It established the principle that everyone is subject to the rule of law, and it influenced democratic constitutions all around the world. The historians who discovered it are due to visit Harvard next month for a celebration. After that, Harvard has not decided whether the document will be put on public display, but for now, the school says it has no plans to sell. We have more news for you still ahead, but first, this episode is brought to you by Skylight. If your brain feels like it's already at full capacity with to-dos, errands, birthdays, dinner plans, and more, Skylight Calendar is for you. I mean, it's really for any family that wants to get more organized and streamlined. It syncs your entire family's schedule onto a sleek digital display so you can focus more on the important things, like actually drinking your coffee in peace, for example. I have loved our Skylight calendar. It helps keep my husband and I on the same page with synced calendars, synced lists, and meal plans. And it gives my kiddo a place to check off his routine each day in a really fun way. And I can't speak highly enough about the way you can upload pictures, PDFs, URLs, birthday invitations, and more, and it'll just auto-load what you need right into your recipes or calendar. Amazing. And get this, if in 120 days you are not 100% thrilled with your purchase, you can just return it for a full refund, no questions asked. Plus, right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/newsworthy. Go to skylightcal.com/newsworthy for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. It's skylightcal.com/newsworthy. Now back to the news. American ports are still facing a huge slowdown in cargo, but reports say they could see the exact opposite in a matter of weeks. As you might have guessed, the swing has to do with tariffs. Cargo leaving China bound for the U.S. now carries a 30% tariff rate and will for at least the next couple of months. But for 6 weeks, it was 145%, and shipment volumes drastically dropped. Now, experts say retailers are starting to stockpile, hoping to bring in as much inventory as possible before things might change again. And this also happens to be the time of year when holiday merchandise starts coming in anyway. So some ports say they're preparing for a surge and staffing up as much as possible. Meanwhile, some retailers say even the 30% tariff, while it's much lower than the 145%, is still unworkable without raising prices. In fact, the world's biggest retailer just announced hikes. Walmart says higher prices started appearing on shelves late last month and accelerated this month, and that an even bigger hike will start to be felt over the summer. Many other companies like Mattel, Procter & Gamble, Shein, and Temu have also announced higher prices because of tariffs. The largest crypto exchange in the U.S. has become victim to a cyber attack. Coinbase says hackers bribed overseas support agents to steal customer data, then demanded money in exchange for not publicly releasing the information. Coinbase says it fired the agents, has not paid a ransom, and is working with law enforcement. The information hackers stole apparently includes names, addresses, phone numbers, and emails, as well as the last 4 digits of social security numbers, government ID images, and account balances. But Coinbase says no funds were exposed. And if any customers were tricked into sending funds to the hacker, they'll be reimbursed. Coinbase says this incident may cost up to $400 million to fix. This dampens what has otherwise been a big week for Coinbase. It announced an acquisition that's expected to help it expand globally. It was also added to the S&P 500 stock index that will take effect next week. For the second time this month, a major footwear company has announced a buyout. Most recently, it was Foot Locker. Dick's Sporting Goods is buying the footwear chain for about $2.4 billion. The company says it will run Foot Locker as a standalone unit and keep the brands like Kids Foot Locker and Champ Sports. But this should give Dick's more bargaining power with national brands, as well as a footprint overseas and a wider customer base. The deal is expected to close in the second half of the year. This comes after earlier this month, Skechers announced it was being taken private by the investment firm 3G Capital. That acquisition is worth more than $9 billion, making it the biggest footwear industry buyout to date. And that deal is also expected to close later this year. The WNBA's new season tips off today, and this year, a lot has changed. 7 teams changed coaches during the offseason, and many all-stars switched teams. Plus, new rookies were drafted and a 13th team was added to the league. This is the debut season for the Golden State Valkyries, so fans will be looking to see how they do and whether the New York Liberty can repeat after winning its first championship last year. Other much-talked-about teams include the Las Vegas Aces, the Minnesota Lynx, and the Indiana Fever, led by Caitlin Clark. Meanwhile, in the NBA, it's down to just a few more teams in the playoffs. Tonight, the New York Knicks are looking to knock out the Boston Celtics, whereas Boston is trying to take it to a Game 7. One of them will face off against the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. Tomorrow, it's Game 7 for the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Denver Nuggets. The winner of that game will face the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Feel Good Friday, when we bring you one extra feel-good or positive news story before the weekend. But first, a word from our sponsor. It's spring, and that means wedding season. Whether you're the bride, like our producer Emily was when she chose Honeylove on her wedding day, or a guest like me who only recently found out about Honeylove and will now never go back. Or you're just looking for extra confidence in your everyday clothes, Honeylove is your go-to for all things shapewear. The Superpower short, for example, smooths, shapes, and lifts, giving you a flawless silhouette under any outfit. And it never rolls down or up. That was a big problem for me when I wore other brands, but not anymore thanks to Honeylove. I also love the design of Honeylove's shapewear, so I don't feel frumpy, and the fabric is breathable too. And it's not just shapewear. From leggings to bras to shapewear, Honeylove provides support that feels custom-made, comfortable, and gives me more confidence when I wear it. Treat yourself to the most comfortable shapewear on earth and save 20% off site-wide at honeylove.com/newsworthy. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off, honeylove.com/newsworthy. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Experience the new standard in shapewear with Honeylove. Now back to Feel Good Friday. A baby in Pennsylvania has made medical history. He was diagnosed with a rare and life-threatening metabolic disorder, but doctors were able to create a personalized treatment with a first-of-its-kind approach to gene editing. And now a new study published in the New England Journal of Medicine describes his treatment. It explains how it relies on the complex gene editing tool CRISPR to target the baby's specific genetic mutation. Notably, it was developed within just 6 months of the baby's birth. He received 2 infusions at 7 and 8 months old. At a follow-up 2 months later, he was growing and thriving. So now scientists hope the same method could one day be used to treat millions of people with this and other rare diseases. The goal is to reuse the key parts of that treatment and simply swap in a custom set of instructions of each patient's gene mutation. Of course, a lot more research is still needed before personalized treatments are available on a wide scale, starting with the one baby who will be monitored for years. Though doctors say he'll soon be able to go home from the hospital. We'll be back tomorrow with our special edition Saturday episode. After Health Secretary RFK Jr. promised to find a cause for the rising rate of autism diagnoses, we decided to take a closer look at what the data does and doesn't already show and hear how people with autism are feeling about it all. That'll be in your podcast feed tomorrow morning. Then join us again Monday for another Daily News Roundup. For now, thank you so much for listening and have a great weekend.